بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. We are back to our novel. I'd just like to refresh your memory with our previous chapter, which is the interview. What did happen at the interview? The characters developed. Chillingworth meets Hester at the prison. They talk together. They explain something to the reader about what's going on, what happened before the story begins. Some new insight into the character of Dimmesdale and his plan to uncover some hidden details we will know later, and how Hester's character is developed, and the agreement between these two characters, that or the consensus, let's say, the اتفاقهم على انه they both wronged each other, because Chillingworth has done something wrong towards Hester, and Hester has done another mistake in the right of Dimmesdale, in the right of Chillingworth. Then the writer moves to develop the character of Hester further by showing Hester in a new perspective. So he presented a chapter entitled Hester at her needle. From the very title, we understand that Hester's job, her own way of living, is by sewing. She is a seamstress, خياطة. She sews some garments, some gloves, some pieces of cloth in order to eke herself and her child. So the chapter starts with Hester Prince's term of confinement was now at an end. You understand that she was imprisoned, and her imprisonment came to an end now, and now she is supposed to take some place where she could live. Her prison door was thrown open, and she came forth into the sunshine, which, falling on all alike, seemed to her sick and morbid heart, as if meant for no other purpose than to reveal the scarlet letter on her breast. From now on, we are going to highlight the scarlet letter, because in every some chapters, the scarlet letter gains some new perspective, some new insight, a new interpretation. In this chapter, we understand that the Scarlet Letter has given some powers to Hester, by which she started to see something that she did not perceive or see previously. I'd like you to highlight the highlighted material only. If you are interested to finish everything, of course, it is better. So all these details refer to Hester's leaving prison and taking lodging as a place at the outskirts of a forest. Now she lives outside of the city, and we will check later. We will try to explain why did not she live inside the community, inside the city itself. She lives in the forest. Look here. It may seem marvelous that, with the world before her kept by no restrictive clause of her condemnation within the limits of the Puritan settlement, so remote and obscure, free to return to her birthplace. Birthplace, yani, to England, London. This is where she came from. But she did not go to London, as you know. She remained in her own place. So the writer tries to show us something here. She was free to go to London or to Amsterdam, where she came from, or to any other European land, and there hide her character and identity. And then, everybody who commits a certain kind of a crime or offense, sometimes they prefer to leave to a new, different area in order to hide their names, their past, their identities. So the writer highlights this issue here. He said that Hester could have traveled to a different place and could have taken a new character, a new identity under the new exterior. But did she go? No. And having also the passes of the dark and scrutable forest upon her, but she did not take this step. No, she preferred to stay. The chain that bound her here was of iron links, the writer here mentions. The chain, the connections, the links that catch Hester and keep her in this place were very strong iron links and galling to her inmost soul, but could never be broken. She could not confront this kind of connection. She could not overcome this kind of binding force that linked her with this area. Then the writer tries giving some of the excuses. Why did not she leave? Why she preferred to stay here? It might be too doubtless it was, although she hid the secret from herself and grew pale whenever it struggled out of her heart like a serpent from its hole. It might be that another feeling kept her within the scene and pathway. There are other reasons that kept Hester in this place and prevented her from leaving the city. There dwelt, there trod. هنا يسكن, there trod, هنا يمشي, walked, the feet of one with whom she deemed herself connected in a union that, unrecognized on earth, would bring them together before the bar or final judgment. What does this mean? This gives Hester an excuse. Why did not she leave? She feels some connection with somebody that lives here, that he and him are connected in a union. A reference to her lover, to Dimmesdale, as we know. She feels that Dimmesdale is here and she could not leave him here because she thinks that she is connected with him in a union. Would bring them together before the bar or final judgment and make their marriage alter for a joint, etc. Hester's contemplation and laughed at the passionate and desperate joy with which she seized, and then strove to cast it from her. She said to herself, had been the scene of her guilt, and here should be the scene of her earthly punishment. That is another reason that held Hester from leaving the city and moving to another different place. She thinks that this is the scene of her guilt, the crime scene, and this should be the scene of her earthly punishment. She wants to implement, let's say, a purification, living here, atoning for her crime, تكفر عن الجريمة أو the crime she has committed. And so perchance the torture of her daily shame would at length purify her soul and work out another purity than that which she had lost. This is another reason why did not she leave Boston and go somewhere else. Hester Prynne therefore did not flee. For these reasons, Hester was not able to leave the city. On the outskirts of the town, within the verge of the peninsula, but not in close vicinity to any other habitation. This means that she lives on the verge, على حافة الpeninsula, but not in close vicinity. ماكو تقارب. There is no connection that brings her close to the city where people live, the civilization. There was a small thatched cottage. There was a small cottage in that area where she took lodging in that place and lives there. It had been built by an earlier settler and abandoned because the soil about it was too sterile. أجدب يعني القاع مالته is not fertile for cultivation, while its comparative remoteness put it out of the sphere of that social activity. So now we learn that the place of Hester where she lived is in a sterile land, infertile land, and it is a little bit far, remote from the sphere of the social activity, which already marked the habits of the immigrants. This is why this place is very far, and this is why Hester exactly took that place to make her her home.